exercise or technique in terms of one getting into a habit or a practice of going in and tapping into the unconscious mind. And most of your answers lie within your own consciousness if you really have enough faith to listen to it. Also, if you can decipher what it's telling you. A lot of times it comes in imagery or ideas or concepts that may not be just literal. So you have to learn how to look at the symbolism that comes to your mind and be able to learn to interpret what is its greater meaning, is really significance of it. And so these are just exercises, and then I don't care if you do whatever you want to do, but again, these are techniques. So today we're on number 7, obedience. Being obedient to the call, vocation. Also, faith in one's ability to learn. It says, being obedient to the call, vocation. One who has vocation hears the voice of the inner self. They are called. Also, faith in one's ability to learn. So both of these things go hand in hand. One is that they say nature does not give you anything that you cannot handle. So again, this is a universal law. So if nature doesn't give you anything you can't handle, whatever you find yourself confronted with, you have the capacity to deal with it. Only thing that keeps you from being able to deal with it is your own thinking. How you've been conditioned to not have faith in yourself, not believe that you're limited, fear, anxieties, all these things. But you naturally, as a living, breathing creation of the universal, have the capacity to deal with whatever you're confronted with. So that's a fundamental universal law, regardless if you believe it or not, it's true. Now, the only thing that makes it not come about is that you don't have faith in that you don't know this and believe this. And then allow your conscious mind of the external world to create obstacles and limitations that keep you from achieving what inside you're being called to achieve. So that's faith in one's ability to learn. That means that you can confront a situation. You have to have faith that you can learn whatever you have to learn. It's like I was doing, my youngest daughter was dealing with algebra. I ain't did algebra in 20 years or whatever. And so she's getting highly frustrated with the work. First thing, of course, the way that they teach it is very frustrating. The way the books are designed, they're really not designed for, she's in 8th grade. It wasn't designed for an 8th grader, in terms of verbiage, how it's laid out or whatever. But at the same time, I was trying to tell her or show her how to use the book. Because teachers do not teach students how to use the textbook. Because the textbook is structured in a certain way. And it lays things out in a certain order. So if you understand the order of how it's laid out, you have a problem. You know how to go to a certain part of the book to get a particular example, etc. But of course, they don't teach you that. They just, go to page so-and-so, do problem 4, 5, and 6, that type of thing. So I was also trying to show her how to use the index, right? I'll say, okay, what's the subject you're dealing with? Go to the index, go to that part of the book, understand what it's telling you, and then go back to your problem. And so that she kept saying, this is hard, it's hard, it's hard. I'm saying, no, it is not hard, it's tricky. And the point I'm making is a lot of African American students, and students in general, think math is hard. So that if you already come in with your conscious mind saying this is hard and not easy, you're already coming in with a disadvantage to the subject. Because you're already coming in thinking it's hard or it's going to be difficult, which means that you don't have faith in your ability to get the information. So what I'm saying is the same thing happens in life. We think that we're confronted with a situation and we may have relived it's not easy, think it is hard. When it's not necessarily hard, it just might be tricky. Because I was trying to change her thinking, and say, okay, tricky means there's a trick to it. If you figure out the trick, it's no problem. If something is hard, then it's going to be difficult regardless of what you do, because it's just hard. So I'm saying the same thing is true in your life. We make life hard for ourselves by our attitude toward it. Life itself is not hard. It might be tricky. And that's only because you don't understand how to work it, how it operates. So again, it's back to the fundamental thing is, do you have faith in your ability to learn? It's a question each of you have to ask yourself. Do you believe you have unlimited potentiality? You have unlimited capacity. You are a part of the universal. You're part of the universal. You're part of the universe. So then by being a part of the universe, that means you also are made up of the same thing the universe is made of. And the universe is made of divine intelligence, which then means you're made of divine intelligence. So then if you're made up of divine intelligence, then the all is inside of you. If the all is inside of you, that means everything that goes on also is within inside of yourself. So that means you know all. Only if you realize this stuff. So again, it's just an attitudinal thing. It's about how you perceive reality will determine how you address or confront reality. It's kind of is reality. So anyway, so it's back to the issue of faith in one's ability to learn. And these things I'm saying are universal truths. That means it's inherent in life. So it's not just for this person and that person, not for this person, that person. It's universal. So again, sort that. Second thing is being obedient to the call or vocation. One who has vocation hears the voice of the inner self. So again, we did an exercise in terms of one getting in the habit of getting in tune with your inner self. Your inner self is always with you 24/7. Always there. It's always calling you. The question is, are you open and listening to it? Is the issue. So then, that's some of the fundamental points. So let's go, always then take this and go to the thesaurus and look up the synonyms. So the synonyms related to obedience are compliance, conformity, resignation, and submission. So it means one who is obedient to the call or their vocation. Your vocation is your calling in life. Everyone incarnates or is born with a purpose, with a call. Because you've been called into existence. You've been called here. The time called you because it needed you. That's why you're here. The earth called you here because it needed you. Because the quality that you're born with is a part of the answer to healing the time that you live in.
I gotta play this back.
I'm not going to be quiet. I'm letting you guys absorb in your brain.
Yeah.
You said the earth called us here into
The earth
existence.
calls you here.
So if you were talking to someone else, I'm not going to say any religious denomination, and you made that comment that the earth called you into existence, they would say, no, God called you into existence.
Yeah, that's true. Same difference.
God is part of the whole makeup.
Right. Well, the whole makeup is God is all.
Right.
And I say that the earth called us here because we live on the earth. We don't live on Mars. See, God is all. So then all things are part of God's creation. But we are here, the earth is our mother. The physical substance that allows us to operate is of the earth. All these things that we operate are from the earth. So the earth is our home, our foundation out of which we came in combination with spirit. So so we're a part, it's like your skin and your organs are part of this body. And if you are a salamander or a shark or something else, you have a different kind of makeup. So then by us being earth creatures, we're actually a part of the earth. If the earth was not here, we would not be here. But God would still be. So we would be in another form. Or our energy, whatever. So when I'm saying that the earth called us here, the earth is literally the mother. It's out of which we were born.
Is there such thing as a Satan, a devil?
Satan or devil is...
Especially if you're speaking of Satan or devil that's described in the Bible.
You see, the devil is a level of consciousness. It's a quality. It's attributes or characteristics. It's negative characteristics. The devil or Satan are all those things that are opposite to God or life.
That was the question I was going to ask you. Like you were saying, we're called to the earth for a particular purpose.
Right.
And the negativity that keeps us from that, in a sense, is the negativity in a sense is the devil and death.
Right.
It's well, spiritual death or whatever kind of death you want.
Right, all those. Because basically the devil or sin or Satan are all those things that pull you away from life and harmony and health and life. But it's just a part of the dialectics.
But when you say devil, are you speaking of the devil that's described in the Bible, though?
What devil are you talking about when you say describe the Bible?
Or the Satan, the so-called Lucifer, Satan, and like the ruler of evil. And see, I think that's a mythology, and I don't believe it. But
Right.
I've been having this conversation with certain individuals, and they really believe there's such thing as a Satan, and I don't.
Sure they do, because they've been conditioned to believe this.
They even said they've seen it before. I'm like, well, you put drugs with you long enough.
Well, see, the mind, see, your mind, your imagination can make things happen. If you believe certain things, then your mind can formalize those, and you can see it. But what are you really seeing? You understand what I'm saying? So then, all the religious texts are really metaphor and symbolism, talking about cosmic principles. It's not talking about personalities, like some creature in the earth with the horns and tails and all this kind of stuff. That's symbolism. Actually, if you're talking about, in one form of fashion, Satan is related to Saturn in one sense. The Saturn, S-A-T-U-R-N, Satan, S-A-T-A-N, and Saturn is the tempter, also the taskmaster, and the tester. And that's what Satan is. Satan tests your faith and your knowledge of you really understand and are in alignment with the Creator, or God. Because Lucifer was also one of the brightest angels in the heavens.
You heard he was a light bearer?
Right.
Was a light bearer.
Right. And what's light really represent? Knowledge. So if he's a light bearer, Satan does bring knowledge, because it was only by engaging in the duality of combating the good and the bad, or so, right and wrong, positive, negative, do you gain consciousness. So Satan brought light or awareness that put us on the journey to reascend to a conscious union with God. We were in an unconscious union with God. In the beginning, in paradise or in the Garden of Eden, we were at one with everything, but we were unconscious of our nakedness, which means that we were not conscious of ourselves as an individual entity. We weren't conscious, we were unconscious. So it's just like you're asleep. You're asleep, you exist, but you don't know you're existing. You're laying down and you're asleep. People come do all kinds of things to you, because you're there, but you're not there in terms of consciousness. So then in the beginning, humans were unconscious. We're like in an animal state. Our minds were like raw, new. Almost like a baby. When a baby first comes out, it's like new. Can't talk, don't know what things are. It's potential. It doesn't even know it's separate from something else. It's not conscious that it's separate. That only comes after more years of living. Starting with I'm this and you're that, mine and you and all that. At first, they don't know about mine. They just want to eat, sleep, be warm. And so the same process that a human goes through from birth to maturity
It's the same process the human race goes through in terms of its origin to eventually to its ultimate goal. And so basically the metaphor of being in the Garden of Eden is a metaphor of the origin of consciousness. Because everything in terms of evolution of humans is related to consciousness, different levels of consciousness. So Satan is a level of consciousness. And we talked about that in terms of the sevenfold constitution and what the beast really represents, 666.
So you're talking about the lower nature.
The lower nature. Because Satan is one who is focused in on the material world, the material pleasure, the lower pleasure, satisfying the flesh, the physical, the emotional, and the lower mental. And so basically what Satan represents are those who follow or are guided by those lower desires. And then the Christ concept deals with the higher self, or your spiritual self, or the Son of God. God is divine spirit. So the Son of God means that he is born out of the divine spirit. So the Christ principle really represents divine spirit in each of us. So the Christ or the Buddha or the Horus or the Heru is a level of consciousness that resides within. So Jesus represents the human. When he became Christ, he represents how the human had transcended or actually died on the cross. The cross represents matter, the physical world, which is a level of consciousness. And by crucifixion, it meant that he had died to the control or being dominant or controlled by the physical and had evolved his consciousness to the spiritual, had become Christed or illumined. Illumination back to light. Light is pure energy, God is energy. The universe is based upon energy or the life force. So with coming into the consciousness, becoming illuminated really represents also illuminating one's higher chakra, the third eye, higher consciousness. So all of this symbolism, because the Bible and all the religious books are actually mystery books that were written by initiates. And because those who were not initiated, they didn't interpret the script literally. They don't understand the story, the symbolism. So if you talk to somebody that's not initiated, they're going to think you're crazy, or they think you're damned. You know, but that's just, they're just ignorant of the deeper insights into it. And one of the power of the Christianity was that it dealt with blind faith. The whole thing about it is just you're supposed to believe regardless. If you don't believe, just by doubting, is then you're subject to damnation, which is a safety mechanism incorporated in their philosophy that keeps them from becoming free thinkers. Then it can control you. Because if the church defines certain things, certain way of being the Word of God, because you now are entrusting your interpretations to the priesthood, how they're defining reality, because they're so-called, in close contact with God, then they control you. Even though you look around, you see contradictions in the so-called Christians, but because they got you in a trap, those who believe, so they can control you. It's about control. So you got to look at the history of Christianity to see how they incorporated the things they incorporated in it. Because you go to the Nicene Council, they took out the whole thing about reincarnation, the whole thing about karma, and then also the whole thing about how the Europeans took it over and became part of the state mechanism and all that. It's a political, economic thing. And then if you understand what age, in terms of the Piscean age, and it came out of the Piscean age, was the key word is I believe. So that was the major dominant thought. Now we're going to the age of Aquarius, with the key word is I know, knowledge. Now the dominant energy is going to be people want to know for themselves. And so that's the vibe, that's the flavor for the next 2,000 years. People are going to come into the know. We're going to see major radical transformations of the globe as the masses of people become knowledgeable about the inner truth that they have been misinterpreting or taking literally for the past thousands of years.
What was the symbol for the Piscean age?
The fish.
It was a fish, right?
Right.
Jesus being a fisher of men.
Fisher of men. Right.
I hate to ask this question, it's not really stupid, but
No question is stupid.
people have referred to Jesus as we know it as Antichrist.
They have, based on what?
Well-
In which people? They usually probably come from a certain group. Right.
Well,
Following some type of specific philosophy.
I was just thinking about what you just said, the fact that it's control of people from going to a higher level of consciousness.
Right.
And the higher level of consciousness is actually getting closer to the truth.
Right.
So in a sense, how it could be interpreted.
Well, see, again, the Christ is a story. It's a
I
story.
mean the way they talk about Jesus as a human being and the limitations of a human being.
But then you can't put it on Jesus, you have to put it on those who are interpreting it that way as being the Antichrist. Okay, now you're close to the truth.
Jesus was the issue, wasn't it?
Right, if you want to get into that part of it in terms of, but actually Jesus is, see, Christ is a title just like Moses.
I'm talking about the man.
Well, see, then that's a whole other thing in terms of talking about, there's different, you got the historical Christ, you got the mythological Christ, so you got to understand what are you really talking about. There's many Christs. That's the other thing. You have many Christs.
Don't matter.
Right. So the point, brother, back to his point, is in actuality, Christianity is antichrist. Because the true message of Christ is, I and the Father are one. The Father is divine will. So if they say, I and the Father are one, that means you and divine will are one. And if divine will is for life, not death, then how can the Christians who are going out murdering and killing people under the name of Christ, that's anti.
That was the point I was trying to
They pollute and destroying the earth, which was the original paradise. They're destroying the original paradise. That's anti-Christ. Because Christ represents higher consciousness, which deals with love and altruism and humanity and all those qualities. Charity, hope, faith, mercy.
What
They
did you
ain't
say?
dealing with that.
Altruism?
Altruism.
What
That
is
means
that?
that's the highest, supposed to be the highest level of love. You have different levels of love.
Oh, okay.
You got eros, agape. I think you have it's one more in there. It's Philos, right? And then you got altruism. Altruistic love is love for the whole. That's when you love the whole, just like you love any one thing. You love all the same way. You love all life.
So what is agape?
I am not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure. I can find out. But anyway, yeah, it's totally screwed up. But that's a part of the process. We went, all that was a part of the process too, though.
But see, that now presents the argument that everything has a layer, which I don't believe is, that evil has, because like you said, there's an opposite, there's good, there's bad.
Right.
God is a leader of all good, so evil has to have a leader also.
But see, God is the creator of all things. God is the one creator of all things. So that means that evil is operating under the guidance of God.
Like that? Little theory out the window.
There's only
That's
one.
into that.
Well, that's part of the
That
balance.
summed it all up right
Yeah,
there.
that's all.
That's it. End of class, we go home.
Because God created the devil.
Right.
So that means the devil is playing a role, like everything else. Life is a drama. Everything is playing roles. So the thing is, you understand what roles these things are. People that come in your life are playing roles in your life. Everything is to bring you a lesson, to bring you understanding. And so then the thing is, are you seeing it as such, or are you just getting caught up in the role? Like you go to the movie, do you think you're in the movie? Or do you recognize you're looking at a movie? Some people get so wrapped up, they're in the movie.
Right. And they start to live it.
That's right. And the same thing happens with people's lives. They start living out these roles and forget that it's a role. You're playing parts. In different parts of your life, you might have to play a different role. But that's only if you understand the separation between the outer and the inner. The outer is temporary. It's always changing. The inner is universal. So what part are you relating to? Are you relating to the outer part, or are you relating to the inner part? Most people relate to the outer part. So they're always going through changes. So they get all confused, they get frustrated. But if you say, well, hey, wait a minute, life, all this is just like things going across the screen. I'm not going to get hung in all that. I can watch it and be here, but I ain't going to get hung into it. That's a part of the process.
You said the earth called you to be.
It called you here. And again, that's a metaphor. The metaphor is that all of us are, the reason we're here, we're on a journey. Right? Let's go to this. This is the key point. We're on this journey. And it's a couple of, it goes two ways. One goes, let's see how, okay, one goes like this. Okay. And then also it goes like this. You can also see this going on.
Sideways.
Right? Okay. So you say, now, before this point in time, there was no earth, right? There was a point in time where there was no earth. So, it didn't exist. That means the earth was born. So the earth itself is on a journey, because some point in time in the future, the earth will not exist. Because the life of the sun is about, I think it's roughly about 10 billion years, give or take, some billions. So that means that the sun itself has a cycle, a life cycle. Because everything in the universe has a life cycle. So that means that everything in the universe is a living entity. Okay, so the earth is alive. It's not like just some physical stuff that's just some innate rock floating around. It's alive. It has consciousness. It doesn't think. But it's guided by universal consciousness, divine consciousness, because it's a part of the creation, right? Okay. So then, the question is, what is the purpose of existence? Why did the earth, it just came into being just for the fun of it? No. It came into being because it is providing the material for consciousness to realize itself. When we talk about the new,
So you're going back to the Memphite theology.
everything goes back to the Memphite theology.
Oh, sure, you're right.
If you understand the Memphite theology, you understand what I'm talking about.
Right. Okay.
This is the blackness, right? It was nothing, just blackness. And what it was saying is, in the beginning, there was no perception. Things were. Because remember it says in Memphite theology, the gods existed inside
The chaos.
the chaos.
Right.
And chaos is only disorder.
Symptoms within the chaos.
So, and within the chaos, there is order.
Or the order emerged.
No, it became,
Okay.
if you were able to perceive it. See, consciousness is reality. Again, we get into metaphysics in terms of abstract thinking. Abstract thinking makes your mind raise up beyond the ordinary and creates a bridge toward the divine, because it forces you to start grappling with the nature of existence and being. So anyway, so what I'm saying is, everything that is, was, and shall be. You understand what I'm saying? That means that the future exists now and the past exists now. The only thing that separates you from encountering it is you don't perceive it. That's because that's where your conscience is. Your conscience operates at a certain level. So you don't look at things just like this. From the beginning to say we're right here now, right in evolution. Let's say we're right here in evolution. This is 1995. We went through many cycles, right, of time. Now to us, we might only perceive or be thinking in the context of this little space right here, right? And that could be 500 years in terms of our thinking. You know, when you orientate yourself, you might only be thinking relative to your own life. That might be 30 years, 40 years. You know, you're thinking, you know, you're operating in the context of, you know, my mother, my father, I'm in LA, that type of thing. When you move your consciousness up to the universal, you operate in the context of all that.
Why did you symbolize this as a sine wave?
Because it's going through cycles.
Because you could just usually use a square wave.
Square wave?
Same thing. You're
A
going to
square
get
wave.
a square wave. This is a sine wave.
Right. Do they have a square wave?
Yeah, it's square. Same thing. It'll give you the same 180 degrees phase shift as you show and symbolize here.
But life operates in circles.
Okay.
It doesn't operate. You can square the circle, we can get into that, but it operates in circles or cycles. Everything, the day is a cycle. It's also a square because it's got 4 cardinal points, but it's a cycle. The universe is a cycle. It operates in circular motion. The sun, the planets, everything is circular. Cells are circular, they're not square.
So you
So the nature of the universe and the concept of God is a circle. The symbol is a circle. No beginning, no end, not a square. Because a square has points that you can identify. But a circle, you can't identify the beginning or the end. So anyway, that's why the symbolism relates to that.
Okay. Because out of this, you still get 360 degrees.
Sure you do.
And out of the circle, you get the same 360
Sure,
degrees.
that's right. It's all related.
So, yeah.
Sure, it's all related, yeah.
So then why do some people, so you're saying that, okay, we're the present and we're the past and we're right now.
Right.
Okay, all right. So then why is it that some people come to certain knowledge? Is it by that person's choice or is that by God's choice and they're chosen to?
It's by that person's choice.
Mm-hmm.
You create your own reality by your actions. How you respond to life creates your future. Because everything is energy. And so all energy has a quality. So then if you're confronted with a situation, the way you respond to that situation is equated with a quality. Either you respond to it positively or negatively. And then there's degrees of that. So depending upon how you respond, how you act, determines your quality of living, which can be equated to an energy level. So then the level of energy in your life, like if you add your life up, say if this is positive and this is negative, and if you take each moment of every day and map out how you respond to life, and terms of, you got 7 levels, right? You got physical levels. So how are you operating physically? Do you keep your body in physical shape? How's your posture? All that's positive and negative. Are you in balance, right? Are you out of balance, right? So you can keep checks, physical checks. Well, how do you eat? Are you eating positive food or negative food in terms of you bringing health or bringing death? Your emotional body, your emotions. Are you in control of your emotions or your emotions control you? Did you go around getting angry and mad and pissed off and fearful and frustrated all day? Are you positive? Are you confident, you know? Are you courageous? Are you obedient? Are you steadfast? Do you have fortitude? Do you persevere? Those are positive and to negative. Mentally, how is your thinking and what thoughts do you hold in your mind? You go around holding negative thoughts in your mind, or you keep positive thoughts in your mind? Because thoughts is energy. So when you add those things up, you add up the quality of your life. So you can say at the end of your day, you add it up and either you can be a plus or a minus. So then you add each day up and your life becomes a plus or a minus. Or a quality, right? So then when you pass out of this life, you have a quality. We call it a valence or a summation of all the moments you've lived. That's a quality. So then the earth, see time, the earth has needs. The time you exist in has needs. So just like your body, when you get a disease or a sickness, your body calls the appropriate element to come combat that thing. So the earth is a living organism and we are part cells of the earth. And so as time is, earth is moving through time and the earth is moving to fulfill itself. Everything is moving to spiritualize itself, to become and fulfill its highest possibility. The earth itself started off as a ball of fire, right? Then it cooled down. You had earth and water. Then you had vegetation. Then you had animals. And then you had humans. The humans are actually the planetarization of consciousness. The humans bring consciousness. We're the sphere of consciousness that the earth is growing. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, because I've heard this term that God through us, that God is getting to know Himself.
Oh, right. Itself.
Itself.
Right. Not from male, female. But anyway,
Themselves.
it's one. Right. Yeah.
I've heard that term before.
That's true. That's right.
God is
That's right.
knowing
That's the
itself,
point.
whatever, through,
That's the point.
through us.
Consciousness is reality. In the beginning, there was no perception. There was only potential. But when you have potential, then you have movement to realize potential. Just like a little kid, right? When the baby is born, it's potential. It has a potential to walk. It has a potential to talk. So that baby is eventually going to move and try to fulfill the potential. Now the environment is going to determine how well it fulfills the potential. If the body is not fed right, then it'll get bow-legged and have rickets and still be walking, but it won't walk as strong as it could walk, right? If it's the conditioning anyway. So what I'm saying is, in first there was no perception. There was only potential. So then the potential though, when you have a potential for something, it then creates a dichotomy, right? You got potential and you got the realization of the potential. The realization of the potential then creates movement to fulfill the potential. The movement, for the movement to happen, because the potential is an idea. It's not real yet. But once you have the idea, then the idea will bring what it needs to give it material form, to move it to fulfill itself. And that's what's happening on the earth.
So that was that exercise you had us do when you started out. You did visualize.
Because see, your vocation already exists within you. We just don't listen to it. So that was an exercise to just get you into tuning into your inner self, which is divine in you. Because everything divine is in you. But because humans have consciousness, we can consciously direct our attention. And what happens, society has us directing our attention always outside. You know, things, cars, whatever, whatever, whatever. And so what the techniques is for you to turn your attention to the inside. Because energy follows thought. Thought directs energy. So the thoughts directs how your energy flows. That's why in disease, you can heal yourself with your mind. Because your thinking will determine your energy flow. And so when, that's why a lot of times they like to tell people they're going to die. Because then they get real pessimistic and their energy go down and they can literally kill themselves. Well, another person who has the same situation, who has willpower and says, I'm not going to allow this to happen to me, they can extend their life based upon the force of their own willpower and their own mind. There's all kind of examples that talk about that.
Your energy is directed here.
Right. Because see, your energy and your thinking, again, your thinking directs energy. That's why media and imagery is the major weapon that's utilized today in society. Because energy follows thought. So they keep your thoughts thinking about certain things, they control you. So then the thing about the earth is on a journey. The earth is a part of the cosmic plan. Because it's the material substance that allows us to walk. That allows us to develop a nervous system, a brain, and out of the brain, we then are able to realize consciousness. Yes, sir.
The earth is on a evolution.
Right.
Not a creation.
It's evolution.
Evolution.
Right. Because the creation is already here. It's trying to move to fulfill the plan. It's like you sit down and you design that building.
Right.
The idea is, all of it is right here. Now you got to go through the changes to make it become real. Some people might take them 20 years to get their house built because they ain't got the resource or the money. Somebody else that got all the resource, they can just put it up in 3 months. So now what we're doing anyway, so what we're doing is we're going through the changes to be able to realize our potential.
How can we do that with the way I mean, that's all cool, but once you tap into your inner self, what are you going to do? I mean, because of the way society is.
What do you need to do?
I mean, you're going to be all happy and feeling good, I suppose.
Yeah. Right.
But as soon as you come out of that trance and reality kicks in and they're knocking at your door,
right,
like your light bill is due,
right,
and the IRS is on your back.
Right.
I mean,
but why are they knocking at your door, and why is the IRS at your back?
Because you all tapped into yourself.
So then you're equating being tapped into yourself as not being responsible? See, a lot of times people...
See, I don't want to tap into myself and not be responsible. I just want to live.
You can't truly tap into yourself and not be responsible, because you are not separate. Like I said, look, if all of us, if this is the earth, and we are all on the earth, we are cells in one body.
But see, this is what I'm trying to say. I'm thinking kind of deep here. Like the way society is made is really screwed up. I mean, you need an apple, you got to pay for it. You live in this house, I mean, right now wood is covering us, we got to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? And you're born, you got to pay for it. You die, you got to pay for it. This is like real ridiculous stuff to me. And I think about it, but it's like I can tap into myself, but still the ridiculous part of living, the way life has been set up is here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you can't bypass that.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I absolutely understand. Now, listen, what did I say? I said that the earth...
So I have more respect for bums than I do for us in this building right now.
Well, yeah, well, that's your perception right now. That's okay. You have a right to that. But listen to what I said. I said the earth calls us here because we all have parts of the answers to the time that we're born in.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Because all of us are cells in the common body. Right?
Right.
Which means then that the earth called us here because we have work to do.
To combat this evil system, huh?
Because the earth is trying to fulfill itself. So all the things that are keeping the earth from fulfilling itself become barriers, you can call them sin, you can call it work of the devil, all those things, you can say whatever you want to say.
Right, yeah.
But it's like dis-ease or disharmony.
Right.
That's basically what devil or sin is. It's dis-ease or disharmony. It's being out of balance. So then each person has a piece of the pie, a piece of the solution. So then back to your question, well then once you tune into yourself, you be all happy, but then you go out in the world, then you meet this stuff. But see, again, where is your perception? That's why we're back here. Everything is going through cycles. We're in a particular cycle of time.
Right.
The European and the Western civilization played a particular role in the whole process. They were a cycle of time. They were a season in the process. Just like these hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff come. And on the outside is devastation. But on the inside, a lot of things start happening. People start working together. People who didn't know their neighbor, been living there 15, 20 years, don't know the person next door to them. Now they know everybody on the block, and they have a whole other consciousness. So that's a part of the plan. But because all we see is earthquakes and the external thing, that's all we understand is going on. But the external or the outer is not real. The real is the internal or the internal thing. So I'm saying, so if you go outside and you know what time it is, when it's winter time, everything looks dead. Mm-hmm. But under the ground, seeds are germinating, getting ready to sprout in spring. So if you know it's winter time, then the question is, if you're a farmer, what are you going to do? Are you going to try to harvest during the winter? Or are you going to go and cultivate in preparation for the spring? So what I'm trying to say is where your perception is. Do you know where you are in time and space? If you know where you are in time and space, that's one. The second thing is you are immortal. Your soul's immortal. So if you sit around here all frustrated and tripping, all you're doing is creating a heavier karma for yourself in the future. Because life will say, oh, you think that's bad? Come back next time and maybe you be paraplegic or something. You know what I'm saying? You think you got it bad. What if you come back like that? So you create your own future.
So the only way you can know where you are in time and space isn't it through the golden key?
What, talking about astrology? Astrology, astronomy?
Yeah.
What part does astrology play into this?
Astrology is like a cosmic clock.
Most people will say that's foolishness.
Because most people ain't studied nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
So they ignorant. Right. And the other thing is, if you understand that, you don't get upset with them talking like that.
I don't.
Because they don't know. So they don't know. They talking from where they at.
Right.
Okay, cool. Then you do, you may drop a few seeds on them and move on.
But astrology isn't it kind of like it's like, because I believe everything in nature has order. So doesn't that fall within the order too?
That's right. What is astrology? Astrology basically is saying it's a cosmic clock, and it just lets you know where you are in time and space. And they've stated it is based upon energy and patterns of energy. So then, and if you just look at nature, things born at a different time have a different quality. Because the energy is different. The energy in the morning is different than noon, is different than the evening, is different than midnight. So things that are born at that time have the quality of that time, the characteristics of that time. So they're going to be different. And so, but they're only 24 hours in a day. So there's only so many types you're going to be able to get. And so, that's fundamental. Then you have astrology that's based on the person, your personal cycle. Then you got astrology that's based upon the group. You have astrology that's based upon an age. Then you got cosmic cycle. It just keeps getting wheels and wheels, like the wheels and the wheels. So all that stuff about Ezekiel and the wheel, they're talking about cosmic cycles. Because again, they have taken out that knowledge, because if you then become knowledgeable, you can interpret things for yourself. Which means you ain't got to go down and pray no priest, you know, you ain't got to, and then if you can interpret it for yourself, you can say, wait a minute, you guys are out of tune here. I ain't following you. But now if you got to come to me, I'm the big cheese, I can say, okay group, we need $100,000, and we're going to go over here because those people over there are crazy, they're following Satan. And our job is to destroy Satan. So I need all of y'all to come out here every night for 4 hours. We're going to train, because we're going to go over there and we're going to fight for Christ and destroy those devils. And because you're so hung up in this mythology, you're going to like, oh, I'm fighting for the Lord. I'm going, how you going to fight for Christ and kill somebody? That's a contradiction. Well, of course, so you caught up, they got you going. They got your money. Oh, I got a big house, a big car, because, you know, I represent the collective group. You want the collective group to be prosperous because you identify with me. So then if I'm rolling strong and you identify with me in your psychology, you think you're rolling strong. You got an old raggedy car out there. But because you belong to this group and I'm rolling strong, you identify with the group, you think you're rolling strong. It's a psychological game. That's why these poor white people can't fight against the system. Because America's got this big image of being the great. How are we going to tear that down? So we got to find something else to fight. Oh, we're going to get you niggas and you chinks and you Hispanics, all the ones. When in reality, it's the big corporations. All the jobs is going around. We ain't taking nobody's jobs. The job is going to Mexico, Taiwan, and all this. But they can't hear that. But anyway, I'm just talking about the psychology. All right, it's psychology. It's a side game. It ain't nothing but a side game.
Could you explain conformity when you talk about obedience?
Sure. Conformity. Conforming. Con with form. Which form are you conforming to? We're saying the highest form is the divine form.
Okay, you're talking about our vocation.
Right.
And then you said conforming.
Right. So are you conforming to the call that's in yourself? You know, if you go inside of yourself and your mind say, this is what I really want to do. This is what I really want to do. Your inner self. But then your outer mind, your conditioned mind say, but, hey, that might be risky. It may not work. They might look at me crazy. I might have to drop all this material stuff and do this for a while at a time. I don't know exactly where this is going to come out because there's no degree in it. You know, there's no guaranteed pension plan in it. So what are you conforming to?
Yeah, I was thinking of conforming to a larger group, but it's conforming to the call.
Right. That's what it's all about. But see, the call is your part in the larger whole. Because see, everything is operating within the larger whole. So if all you got to do is conform to your part, and you will be playing your role in the whole. If the plan's already here. Okay, so anyway, the question was, how did the earth call us? The question the earth called us in. I'm saying the earth is going through a journey. It's evolving. We're a part of the earth evolving. Consciousness. We only use, 4 or 5%, so we ain't nowhere near our potential. But we won't be able to evolve those higher potentials because we can't even use creatively and humanely the 5%. Just think if we use 10%, we blow ourselves up. Because you know, people too greedy, they agree with some power. Oh please, man, how come they just want to take your stuff or something? Then you come back with some of that stuff. Then if you get into Atlanta, they talk about how that. But I'm gonna go there. Okay.
Hey, go there a minute.
No, we be all off somewhere. Come back to that. The only thing I was talking about in terms of Atlantis, they were talking about. You also got to look at this. Involution, evolution. So as consciousness was coming down into forms, there was a time that at the earlier stages, where humanity still had the utilization of our higher faculties. So as we were coming to, because we came down and became more and more dense, okay, in terms of this divine potential.
What time did you have a body?
Well, it was a body, they had a body, but the point was we still had we had utilization of our higher psychic faculties. But what happened is that we started using them for negative, for personal power and greed and all these kinds of things. And so what happened is, see, everything in the universe has a response. So as we start to misuse the energy, we create a negative. And then the universe responded to that negative. And there was a cataclysmic destruction that then destroyed that negativity. Because see, it's like on the earth, you know, you got an itch over here, right? It's messing with you. You're going to start trying to get it off. So earth be the same way. You got this diseased, disharmonic energy. It's going to try to make it create a balance. So that's the way the universe works. It's just energy. And so then it was destroyed. But before it was destroyed, there were those, because they were still in the psychic attunement, saw the destruction coming, they moved out in form of the colonies. So the idea now, Atlantis was off the west coast of Africa. And so then they said some of those folks had moved over to the Nile and that type of thing. That's the thing about that. The point I was raising is just the negative use of energy. But anyway, so it said compliance, conformity, resignation, and submission. And all those talk about basically, are you obedient to the inner call? So obedient implies compliance with the demands or the request of one in authority. So we're saying, who's in authority? In you, who's in authority? It's the inner self, the higher self, the divine self, the spiritual self. That's a true authority. Like last week we talked about the teacher. And the true teacher is your inner self, your inner mind. So then are you obedient to what it be telling you? Second, it implies a predisposition or docile. It implies a predisposition to submit readily to control or guidance. But to whose control and to whose guidance? Tractable suggests having a character that permits easy handling or managing. And amenable suggests a willingness to yield or to cooperate either because of a desire to be agreeable or because of a natural open-mindedness. Now all these things are talking about your conscious mind. Because see, the dichotomy is between your conscious mind and your inner mind, or between the personality and the soul. The soul is what knows. The personality is conditioned. So initiation reconditions your conscious mind, your personality, to become in alignment with your inner spiritual self or your soul. And it's supposed to also be what religion is about, because religion means to bind one back. And so the whole purpose of religion, the original, if you look at religions originally, they came to reunite people who had really went off and got off on tangents. Because every 500 years, a new major religion comes in because people are all off on a tangent. So they usually come in and try to bring people back to the origin, the original point. And then it'd be cool for a while, you know, then humans the way they are, start, you know, people get on power trips and everything, and next thing you know, people doing all kind of crazy things in the name of this religion. Then usually what happens is another teacher or master or savior comes in to try to get people to reorientate themselves back. Because time has moved, then they use different words, different symbolism, talking about the same thing. So I'm talking about this obedience is the conscious personality being obedient to the inner self of your spiritual self. And so basically what the virtues was trying to do is recondition you where you became guided by your inner self as opposed to being conditioned by all the facts of society. So, next it says vocation. So being obedient to the call is the vocation. Vocation relates to one, motive. What's your motive in life? What is motivating you? So if you look at the motive behind what you're doing, that'll really let you know what's guiding you. Am I going and doing something because it's the trend and I want to be in? That's external. That's not internal. You're being guided by the external pressure to want to conform or to cooperate because you don't want to look bad, or somebody's pressuring you, or somebody's expecting you to do something.
So your motive should be related to your purpose.
Right. That's right.
Or
it's all back to following the call, the inner. What's motivating you to do what you're doing? Are you following this inner guide and that's the motivation? Or are you in external expectations? My mama wants me to do it. My daddy wants me to do it. My wife, my husband, society.
outer versus inner.
Outer versus inner. It says, in the Aquarian, it says what? Go to the town and find the man carrying the water pitcher and follow him into the upper room. Upper room is up here.
Where is that stated? That's in
I didn't get the exact verse. It's in the Bible. I think I can go through my stuff and find it.
is that in probably Revelations?
Probably. I'm bad at some of that. So it says occupation. Okay, vocation, motive, occupation, specialty, and the ministry. That means everybody has a ministry. Because the ministry is usually called. So your calling is your ministry. And religion is a way of life. So your vocation is your calling, which is your ministry. So everybody's a minister. So anyway, then it talks about motivation and inducement. What induces you to do what you do? It talks about reasons, the cause, the source, the goal. What is the goal you're trying to achieve? What's the ideal? What inspires you? What are you aspiring to do? What is your ambition? It says guiding light or star. So what is the thing that guides you? With light or star, direction. And then it talks about specialty. What's your specialty? Your line of work, your field, your area, your interest, your forte. What are you strong in? A lot of people have natural talents, but because of conditioning, they don't cultivate them. I know a lot of people got natural talents in one area and they don't even cultivate it. They want to go do something else for whatever reason. Why do you think you got this natural talent? That gives you an indication of some of the stuff you're supposed to do. Things that you like with kids, they say like the original Montessori method in teaching kids, which came from a spiritual orientation, that each child is a soul, an independent soul. Parents do not own kids, they're stewards. Their guide is to help cultivate, like a farmer, this young soul. So they say what you're supposed to do is run and watch your kids and see what their natural interests are, and then just cultivate those things. Just, like if a kid likes to build stuff, then give it an environment so it can build. If he likes to draw, then do things so he learns how to draw. If he likes to dance, or if he likes mathematics, do things to cultivate his natural abilities. They say that we all come already having what we need. It's just we need to be cultivated and guided. It's totally opposite in this country. They try to make you fit into a box. That's why these kids today are rebelling against these schools. They don't match. Because although they're not conscious of the dynamics, they're still in tune with something that's not right. So they rebel. And because adults are thinking that they're supposed to rule, you know, they're trying to force people into these boxes, which makes them feel even more uncomfortable, so they rebel more.
I think one thing on a scale of financial, I think some people do things that they're not necessarily strong at, but something they can do and for financial gain.
Right.
In order to
Make that money.
Exactly.
Right. And to get the things that the money can buy.
And you get paid for what you're not so good at.
Right. But then
the
the end where you
try to do what you're not, what you are good at, and not get paid, and I guess the way some people see it is suffer the consequences in between the two.
Well, I think the key thing may be, one, will you then convert over to what you really want to do? Use it as a means to do what you really want to do,
Right.
which is okay. Or we just get so hung up in terms of just getting paid that when you, at the end of your life, you look back over it, what you really have.
I should have been.
Yeah. They say when you die, what you really look at is what is really meaningful in your life, not all the crap that you had. They say most people when they die, all the crap, physical stuff, don't even come into picture. What kind of relationships did I have? What kind of meaningful things did I really do?
Yeah, it seems like at some point you're going to get to a level where you're going to be thinking about quality.
Right.
You know,
As opposed to quantity.
right.
I do these multicultural retreats where you go up 6 days, like I said, and have a retreat. Majority of, when we first started off, were, when I first went, it was like white males. And when I was this first affair, I was like, what is this? I went to look at it. So I came there, some of the Japan theater, it's like 500 men in this auditorium. But I'm walking up and I see this line all around the block. I look at it and you just, in the parking lot, all you see is Mercedes and BMWs and Peugeots, you know, all this stuff. These people are materially successful. But personally, their life is like a shell. They did all the so-called right things, you know, got the education, been a good guy, did their work, worked hard, accumulated all these type of things, but inside, they're totally frustrated.
They
feel
feel
empty.
They feel guilty.
A lot of them don't necessarily feel guilty because a lot of them are victimized just as much as some of them are victimized more than us. They're victimized more than us because they believe the hype, where a lot of us know it's bullshit. Right. You know, and it's very obvious what's going on in their life. A lot of these people grew up like in Disneyland. You know, in terms of thinking the world was all these stories and all this was true, and then they started living life, and then cracks started coming in, and they started peeping in there and started seeing what was behind all this, and started seeing how they've been running a game on them. But they've been so conditioned, I'm telling you, it's something, a lot of the white folks have been so conditioned to be what they call good and not rebel against the system. They've been programmed almost not to be able to fight against the system. A lot of them envy, I found that they, first of all, black people are the true leaders because we're very conscious of what's really going on and we have the energy and the passion. Our only problem is that we're so emotionally still hooked into a lot of the negative inferiority things, we can't get our act together. That's what's keeping us away. That's the only thing that's keeping us from really becoming world leaders. So everybody's following us anyway.
You mean people here? Or
some people on the globe, people all over. They got us still hung into the past. And then their interpretation of the past. We're not living off of our interpretation of the past. We're living off their interpretation of the past. That always gives what? Negative images. Energy follows thought. So even when you start moving to be successful, you get these doubts in your mind. It's like programmed in. That little hesitation, that let this guy to get in on you.
yeah. So you said those of us came before us and with us here now we have to create more positive energy from the past and get a positive energy for the future.
That's right.
For our children, instead of saying this is where it was, this is for the future, it was a positive in the past for the future. That.
Right.
Understand?
Right. What are the lessons that we learned
that we need to then correct the mistakes.
Right.
So that now we function off the corrected form and not just go back and relive the same old thing over and over again.
Instead of reinforce images of yesterday.
Right.
Of what accountability for us.
Right. We need to project new images of the future.
Right.
How do black people be living in the future? How do we want to live in the future? Those are the kind of images we should be projecting. Stop constantly going back to the past. We live in the past. That just recycles the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
That's interesting what you said about the media. You notice every now and then they'll bring out a movie about slavery. You know.
But it'll never be the true slavery. You've never seen a slave movie.
The imagery of slavery.
But we have to make a true slave movie about how devastating and how raw slavery really was. Just like you'll see the Holocaust, they'll show you mounds of bodies laying all jacked up. Hell, man, just think if they showed you 400 heads sitting on poles. Yeah. Or they hung up pregnant women, just cut her stomach over and let the baby fall on the ground.
Well, what about Sankofa?
I haven't seen that yet.
It's close. Right over there in Torrance.
Now see, the issue now needs to be, well, we need to have a local copy of Sankofa, but we can show the thing on a continual regular basis.
Well, we are bringing that to Long Beach. If we can get Long Beach to work with us, but we're going to have a screening, and after the screening, we're going to have a discussion of what we just saw.
Right. And then the next move to get the thing on PBS.
Right, PBS.
You know, and then, and get it on cable, BET, in terms of us really getting, because it's like, they have so many repetitions of negative.
Right.
You got to get so many repetitions of positive. So we get one blip to 1,000 blips. So we got to start intensifying the blips.
For the first opposite, I think will be an initial shock that is more than it will be a positive. The first initial, the total opposite of what you're conditioned to seeing will be more of a shock than it is a realization.
Probably.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, when you go to see it, it's brother, he talks. The director,
his narrative,
he talks about the movie and what he went to get the movie. He really actually had to go to Europe, man, to get what he needed. You know what I mean? But he said it was the little brothers and sisters around Washington D.C. that they only have what he said, one copy.
And stuff like he's always been an activist. Yeah. That was like back in 71, 72, So.
He was saying how John Singleton and Scooby and running from here together. They scared to death of it.
Yeah, because they know that the pressure gonna come down on them if they start going in that direction. But that's all a part of it.
It's something I'm going to see it again.
Yeah, me too.
Take some people, get some people to go.
There's an announcement on
what's happening, again, is back to this symbolism in terms of the greater, we're going to see the whole human race is going through a cycle. So a lot of times we relate to the cycle just from our own perspective. But the whole human race, the planet, is going through the whole cycle. So it's affecting everybody going through the changes. And again, if we still understand that there is a greater reality that all of us operate within, and so each of the parts are playing a part in the whole drama. So anyway, so what's happening, see, because we're all of us are moving toward this knowing. Everybody's moving toward this knowing. And so you'll have, and because even those that come to that is a certain class of white people that even come to those. They're usually educators, social workers, artists type people. You don't get no blue collar workers, no construction, none of that kind of stuff. They don't be coming. And you don't get no high profile corporate types don't come. You get some lawyers, you get some doctors, but they usually have a certain level of social conscience, or either a person in their life, their father or brother went through an experience that really changed them, and that induced them to come see what's happening.
And then once they get involved, in the whole foundation of the experience is African-centered, African and Native American, in terms of the rhythms, the chants, the stories, the whole format is taking them back into a tribal experience. And so it's true religion. It's taking people back to the origins, back to organic living out with, limited electricity, in nature, you're living in communes, because you live in groups. You eat, sleep, work in groups. And you're forced to confront, like we have a session in the evening, it's called conflict. Whatever is on your mind about a situation, you can bring it out. The only rule is no violence, no physical violence. If you feel like jumping and screaming and calling her or whatever, you can. And if she want to say whatever, if you want to ask these white people, what in the hell's wrong with y'all? Why are you doing this and that? You can say that. If you want to ask these Hispanics, why in the hell all y'all come over the border and think you belong here? You can say that. And you find out stuff. Because people say, well, first it started off as being an employment thing. They bring us over here working in these jobs, and especially first it came with the farm workers. They have us come over here on these seasonal things, and that, so it's not just us. Then it's an economy thing, because the United States keeps the Latin American economies all messed up. So then the wars and people, all that. So it's a greater dynamic. So it makes you start seeing it's not just this personalized thing. Everybody is operating in the context of this global thing.
No way.
So then if you really want to change the situation, it ain't about trying to hit on these Hispanics right here. You got to change the system that's causing for all this stuff to happen.
So you go to the source.
You got to go to the source. And then you hear the stories about, oh man, you hear some stories, and you hear it.
My wife was.
Hey, they are the system that everybody. Their personal lives, sexual abuse, drug abuse, dysfunctional families, all that. They only think about them because a lot of these particular groups materially, got education and stuff, so they got the material stuff. But in terms of their personal life, divorce and crazy stuff. Yeah, and so what you start seeing is like, although our stuff is raw in terms of every day, it's really more healthy. We're more healthy because we're working with survival of what our physical situation is. They on some heavy head trips, real heavy head trips.
So you saying it's hard being white?
I ain't saying that. I'm still saying they got, I'm saying my question to them was, are you ready to really deal, is the question. You come here and talk about your problems and, go through all that. But then when you go back home, you still live in these nice pads and got the cars and all that kind of stuff. So you got all this insulation to help you go through your pain, right? I go shopping or whatever. So, it's better to be that way than being out in the pain and you can't go shopping, you can't do it. So the question was, their greatest fear was that to get equality, they really run around thinking that black people want their stuff. That's why they think that if we have equality, that black folks are going to try to come and live with them and I can't have my house because now I got to give up the house and the cars. I say, I'm going to tell you something. I say, I love being black. I don't particularly care about social life. I respect you as a human being. I don't particularly care. I want to live with y'all or whatever. I just want y'all to leave us alone. Because the question I had for them was, I said, about black people, white people cannot leave black people alone.
They never could.
Yeah, it's a thing that, it's not that we fell on our own, it's that you guys always come in and kick stuff, we're trying to climb up something, you kick the box from under us. You just can't leave us, even if we have an old rickety box. You know what I'm saying? You still got to come over there and mess with us.
No, they want the box. They don't. They want the box.
They're afraid. they are so afraid because that's where the guilt thing comes in.
That's guilt, man.
The guilt and the shame. Because at the end of the session, we went through about 3 or 4 days. The Hispanics was talking about the Asians. Only a few Asians come out because they don't come out in public and talk about their culture. So they're bred to not go outside their culture and talk about personal stuff.
They have, it's just the way the Asian culture is created.
Because they have everything going on there that's real deep. You really, it opens your consciousness up in terms of how crazy everything is. It makes you become less negative about your own situation. Because you see that, I mean, you hear some stuff, man, about crazy stuff. But anyway, the point, at the end, and I'll get off of this, how do we get on this? He ain't even here. He said he wanted to hear the story. Go. Crazy. I mean, talking about this, you all running around somewhere. Anyway, to finish it off, behind it all was, because we were talking, everybody was telling their stories, Native Americans, Asians, Hispanics, black people, and the white people wasn't saying nothing.
Hey y'all.
And so then it came out where they said, well, how come y'all ain't saying nothing? What's happening here? And they finally came out and said, well, what can we say?
See, they're sitting there being entertained by
No, they weren't being entertained. What they were saying is like, what can we have pride in? Because each culture that was here, which represents the whole globe, when they started talking, we were talking about how white people that destroyed their culture, came in, raped them, destroyed them, pillaged and everything, and still doing today. And so their whole thing is what can we say? And the first thing we said, first of all, you ain't never said you sorry. That's number one. Because they ain't never said they were sorry about slavery.
They never sorry.
No, they ain't publicly.
They ain't.
Right. That's one. And number two, how are you going to change now? Is the other side of it. You know, just recognize is one thing, but what are you going to really put on the line to change? Because if you don't put nothing on the line to change it, you still support it. And that starts scamming. Because then they got to give up.
Well, I'm not responsible for the things that my ancestors
did. Yeah, it kind of
I don't see how you can come and blame me for it.
Because it still happens today, and you ain't fighting against it. If you ain't fighting against it, you support it because you benefit by it. That's the thing.
Survival.
Right.
That's a good response.
That's what the deal is. That's true.
You know, I did something. I did try to know Dr. Wells. I told her, well, he told me, how you doing, man? I said, I'm doing fine, but I'm scared to death of you. You scared of me? Yeah, man, I'm scared to death of you. You know, he just walked or looked at me and just walked away. He said, Stan told me he was scared of me. He was scared of nobody. I ain't seen him back down from nobody. That's why I'm scared to death of you. I just wanted to see how things work. This seriously works, you know. It seriously works. It seriously. So, I guess what you're saying.
Hey, man. But anyway, that's
supremacy is mean.
But see, it's a sight game, though. The whole thing is a sight game. It is a sight game. Okay, here, let's try to finish up. Okay. No. Much stuff. I'm going to read something to you. This comes out of some of the lesson material for Black Gnostic Studies. It says that, now in astrology, again, astrology is a system that really defines the characteristics of how energy operates. So each sign really represents an energy pattern. And so Leo, and I could have got into we talked about this before in terms of the different, I'll do it real quick to you.
The what?
Leo, what I'm talking about. Okay, we've kind of talked about this before. First of all, astrology is a philosophical system that talks about how energy operates in the universe. So remember we talked about you have fire, air, earth, and water. There's fire, earth, air, and water. And then you have cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Right? And cardinal is initiating, fixed is sustaining, and mutable is changing. Okay, that's good. So basically what the 12 signs of the zodiac represent is those 12 phases of life. You have Aries is fire, and it's cardinal fire. You went through this already, I don't want to go through all this. You got Taurus, which is earth, and it's fixed. And then you have Gemini, which is air, and it's mutable. So you have initiating, sustaining, and changing. Initiating, sustaining, and changing. Initiating, sustaining, and changing. Initiating, sustaining, and changing. That's the dialectics, right? That's the Trinity. This really represents the 3 and the 1 of how the Trinity operates. God, or the life force, operates in these 3 manners. Those are 3 modes of how spirit or life force operates. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Initiating, sustaining, and transforming or changing. That's the Trinity, the Godhead. So the initiating is like the Father. The sustaining is really is the Son. And the changing represents the Holy Spirit, the transforming. But there's also Father, Mother, and Child, which is Father is initiating, the creative spark. Fixed is sustaining, which is the female, the material, the matter, and the changing or the mutable, which is a combination or transformation of both of them, is the child. So again, that's that symbology. It's really all the stuff is talking about science. In fire, earth, air, and water. So what I was got to then, Cancer is water, and it is cardinal. And then Leo is fire, and it is fixed, water. And then Virgo is earth, and is mutable, changing. Libra is air, and is cardinal. And then Scorpio is water, is fixed. And Sagittarius is fire, and is mutable. Capricorn is earth, and is cardinal. Aquarius is air, and it's fixed. And then Pisces is water, and it's mutable. So then you have 3 fire signs. And so they're in 4s. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 represents elemental, which is really kind of unconscious. Then the next 4 from Cancer to Scorpio, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, represents individual.
Before you go on, Cancer, you got Cancer in the wrong place, don't you?
No, Cancer right
there.
4.
Oh, is that 4?
Cancer's 4.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
And then you have from Sagittarius to Pisces is universal. So the fire signs really initiate or represent 3 different aspects of living or existence. So you have the elemental level, you have the individual level, and you have the universal level. The elemental level is like the instinctual. Instinctual. These are the 3 phases of existence also. Because in the original state of human beings, we lived in the instinctual level. We all lived for survival. You know, mainly about food and shelter and family and perpetuation of the species. And we kind of still was connected to our instinctual level. The next level is the individual level, in terms of where people became individualized, more separated. And we have actually came to the epitome of individualism in the European. The European represents the extreme of individualism, ultimate individualism. Where, because their whole thing is just the I, although it's not true, but they operate off of, well, I'm getting over and you ain't, something wrong with you. Survival of the fittest, individual, rugged individualism. The next level is the universal level, which represents cosmic universal level, which is the ultimate destination of humanity. So it's the ultimate level. It's also, if you want to look at masonry, you have entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. And I could give you all the scenarios in terms of youth, adults, and seniors, or elders. So the youth are still operating off of what? Instinctual level. They're still guided by their glands, their emotions, and all this kind of stuff. When you become an adult, you become individualized. You start having individual responsibilities. You have a family, your job, or everything. Then when you become an elder, you're universal. But you're looking out for the whole. You're doing what's best for the whole. And because you live, you now have wisdom in terms of how life really operates, and you can see a bigger picture, a whole picture. So what I'm showing you is one, we talk about astrology, which is also astronomy. But we're also talking about how it's a philosophy. It's not this stuff in the papers. It's actually talking about the philosophy because it's mathematical. You got numbers, you got patterns, and I could get into more of that. So anyway, now, that took me to how this thing unfolds. It's saying Aries is the seed, it's the spark, it's the beginning. It's the springtime, new life, the beginning. Taurus is then, so Aries is I am. So for anything to develop, it has to have an identity. Go back to Nephi theology. Creation didn't occur until Atum named the parts of itself. The parts he named were the reflection of the gods that was in the noon. The parts that he named were reflection of the gods that were in the noon.
Or different aspects of...
Reflection was a reflection in the material. A reflection, your reflection is not you. It's a reflection of you.
Right.
So it's the other side of you. So in the noon you had chaos or disorder. Creation was order. So the only difference between chaos and creation is order. The order already existed in the noon. It just wasn't perceived. You didn't perceive it. If I name myself, myself is already here. I just name it. Follow what I'm saying? It already exists, but until I defined it, it doesn't exist to me. Which goes back to the same position that African people are in. We have not defined our future, so we can't make it become a reality. That's the reason why it can't become a reality. We haven't clearly named what it is. We still talk about it in generalities.
We need to be more specific.
We got to be specific. Because energy follows thought. If we're very general and then keep changing, got all these conflicting things, then that's what's going to be. Confusion and conflict. We have to project an imagery of wholeness, togetherness, and health. What is it? Can somebody pull out a document and hand it to me that says this is the blueprint for the new African world? So it's like an architect. Can you design a building without a blueprint? How are we going to build a nation of freedom without a blueprint? We've got to define it. So I'm just saying how the process is totally activity. So anyway, I'm trying to get to know it's the same point. Now, so Aries is the creation, the I am. Taurus is I have. So once you define something, you have to have material things so it can sustain itself, emit
initiating, sustaining. Taurus is earth. Aries is fire. Fire is the inspiration, the ideal or the idea.
Say that again.
Fire represents inspiration, aspiration, ideal, goals, vision. So first you got to have an aspiration. What are we aspiring to? What's our goal? What's our objective? What's the vision we're trying to achieve? Then you have earth. To sustain an idea, you have to have earth. Taurus represents the earth. Material, productive, making it real, making it tangible. So the only way you can sustain it is through material productivity. And then the next is Gemini, which is I think. Now, what do you think about your productivity? It relates to studies, so you got to study it. Are you studying what you're doing? How productive are you? Are you studying it? What are you learning from it? What are your limitations? You have to understand your limitations. You can't do everything. So what's our limitations? So that's I think. You got to think about what you're doing too. So I am, I have, I think. Then I feel. Cancer is, what do you feel about it? Does what you're doing feel good? Do it feel bad? But Cancer also represents memory, because water represents memory. Your emotions or feelings are based upon your memories of things. So your memories, but Cancer also represents the womb, or the consolidation. Because in the womb, the idea for the new embryo is consolidated and formed, and then that creates the vehicle for Leo, I will. So I will then comes back to fire, but it's fixed fire this time. That means sustaining the idea.
Wait a minute, you said I will?
Leo is, key word is I will. I will what? Usually Leos operate from the ego. I is the little I, as opposed to the big I. So Leos always want to get attention, and they want to be in the middle of the eye. It's me, you know, it's my thing. I want to do it this way. I want you to do it this like this. So they also deal with leadership and drama and all that. Anyway, now the point I was leading to, I started off talking about Leo. That's how I got here. Went through this long trip to show you something about the signs. And let me finish up real quick. Leo is I will, deals with the ego. It deals with personal creativity. Leo relates to personal creativity. What is your personal expression? What is your personal role? Because everybody has a part to play. So what is your personal creativity? What really gives you pleasure? Not externally, but really, what really satisfies you? What would really satisfy you? If you could do whatever you wanted to do, what would really satisfy you? What would really bring you happiness? What do you really enjoy? Really enjoy. I ain't talking about, this external stuff, but what your soul, your spirit, what do you really enjoy? Because see, Leo relates to the drama. Life is a drama. So what character are you playing in the drama of life? Like now, I'm a Sagittarius. I see. I am fire, inspiration, vision, purpose, ideal, mutable, transforming ideas. So it deals with I see. So I'm always into talking about, it's the philosopher, the teacher, all that kind of stuff. I could get into more examples about that. So what I'm saying, what brings me pleasure? This. I love doing this. I can do this 24/7. If I'm tired, once I get in the chair and start the class, I get energized. Because I love it.
You're sharing this.
But that's my calling. So that's what I'm saying. What really gives you pleasure? Now I also like to go party and all that kind of stuff too. But what really gives me pleasure, in terms of soul-wise, in terms of me doing my work, is this kind of stuff. I'm at my best when I'm teaching. I love it.
Do you consider this work? I don't think
my work. Yeah, I'm doing work. I'm putting my work in.
It is work,
right?
But
so you're defining work from a Eurocentric perspective.
Yeah.
See, that's the other thing. We have to go back and redefine words. People think work is bad, or work is hard, or work is not good. Work is good. Work is supposed to be fun. Work is productive.
Well, what
And you tell our kids to work, they say, work? What do you think? I ain't no slave, I ain't this. See, we didn't, again, see, we're still tied in to the slave experience. I want to talk about we need to bury the slave experience and get beyond that, where we redefine the terminology, not based upon that experience. We have to redefine it based upon its original meanings. And we're not doing that.
It seems to me though, if you're doing something you enjoy, you wouldn't really feel like it's work, even though it is work.
But see, again, you're interpreting the word work as being
negative.
Negative.
I would say job is negative, because to me, job is toil.
But again, it's a definition of job, because I'm on my job. See, the secret say, are you on your job? On your job? That means you take care of business. That was positive.
So
but then your job was, in that time, was when you take care of business relative to black liberation.
At that time.
Right.
So it's based on your attitude.
It's your reference point.
Okay.
It's your reference point. That's why we got back to this. And we said relative to the now, what is your reference point? Is it just your own life? How you felt today? Or is your reference point related, are you operating in the context of the whole cycle? Do you know where you are in time and space? But if you know where you are in time and space, and you know what time it is, then you understand what's going on around you. You don't get all frustrated. You don't get all bent out of shape. So the whole point is for you is to elevate your consciousness so you actually can see how what you are doing today is connected to 2,000 years from now. Because you're operating in the context of the larger cycles. If you know this is the age of Aquarius, the key word is I know. It deals with the higher mind and revealing the inner teachings. It deals with a time of really dealing with initiation, mass initiation. If it's dealing with also scientific knowledge, but not just the European scientific knowledge, the inner and the outer knowledge. It deals with inner teachings. So if you know that's what time we're moving into, then the more I cultivate those characteristics, the more I'm going to be in tune with the universe. If you know the Piscean age dealt with I believe, blind faith, confinement, limitation, subjective limitation, then the more you then follow that, the more you are out of tune and you're going to be in dis-ease. So if you look around and say, my stuff ain't working, that means you're out of sync. You're out of harmony with the time. Because the new age is the age of the farmer. The Piscean age was the age of the fisherman. Just trying to go fish people in, net them in. Aquarius is the farmer. You got to cultivate. To cultivate, you got to make sure they got the right soil and water and light and the whole thing. If you provide them with the right soil and environment, they will grow on their own. That's what we're trying to do. You're trying to grow, provide an environment so everybody grows on their own. So then when you're dealing with people, what are you cultivating? When you're cultivating, what are you cultivating? So anyway, I got in there, got into astrology, I was talking about Leo. I will. Okay, now, the issue was, Leo is a sign of dramatization. The ability to dramatize what you are. In Leo, you can express the magic of being or knowledge through socialization, which is when we say, what magic do you have? What magic do you have? Everybody has magic. You know what I'm saying? In terms of the thing that you can really roll with, that you can really be creative. What is that? See, that's
also you being obedient to that. Do you be obedient to that, or do you resist it for whatever? So it says, this magic is a utilization of earth, air, fire, and water. So again, what energy are you? Do you know what element you are? Do you use your element?
Question, when fire signs, initiation, earth, sustaining.
Not the fire signs. Fire is inspirational. Fire is inspirational, motivational, future-oriented. Fire.
It's not initiation?
No. See, you have 3 fire signs, 3 earth signs, 3 air signs, and 3 water signs. So one of them is cardinal, one of them is fixed, and one of them is mutable. So you have the 4 elements and the 3 qualities. And the 4 times the 3 is 12. So the 3 represents the 3 modes of the divine trinity. That's how the creation works. The 4 elements are the materials upon which the physical world is built. So that's almost like the mother and the father. And then you have the unity between the 2, and that creates all the various types of children, which are the 12 basic types.
Okay, so...
I think you said Aries was fire sign.
Cardinal, it's a cardinal fire.
Initiating ideas.
Right, it's a cardinal fire. See, Aries is cardinal fire, Leo is fixed fire, Sagittarius is mutable fire. So each of the fire signs then have a different quality. They have a similar quality, but then they have a different nature in terms of how it operates. So Sag is a very mutable, changing, adaptable. Leos are very strong-willed, very focused, very fixed, very stubborn. Aries is very initiating. They're like always doing something new. You know, it's hard for them to get focused on one thing. They just like to be doing stuff all the time. You know, they're pioneers though. They're trailblazers. You know, they like to start stuff. They like to do things that haven't been done before. You know, so if you understand that, you know that for Aries is a good. You have to give them a lot of elbow. Well, all fire signs got to have room or space. But Aries, only thing for Aries, they got to look before they leap. Because it's instinctual, so they like to they react off of gut feeling sometimes. But see, sometimes they jump off on stuff and look around and say, "Wow, I don't want to be out here." But now I'm out here.
So is water nurturing?
So water is nurturing. Water is emotional, but it's nurturing. It deals with memory. But the key thing for water is emotional and it's nurturing. So water signs like and need to get nurtured, but they also can provide nurturing. So then your cardinal water is Cancer. Then your fixed water is Scorpio, and then your mutable water is Pisces. So you know, and then you have the air. Then you have the earth sign. Your Taurus is your fixed earth, very stubborn but very sustaining and very persistent, bullheaded. Then you have your fixed mutable water of earth, which is Virgo, which they, you know, Virgos can work, but they can really work for others.
Virgo mutable?
Virgo's mutable.
Yeah.
And then your fixed cardinal earth is Capricorn. That's your business sign, management, organization. And then you got your air, where Gemini is mutable air. Air is intellectual, mental, associated. So mutable, they're always trying to associate stuff. So the main thing about Aries is being scatterbrained or scattered. Because they're curious. They always want to, you know, pick up books and knowledge and information. Now we're going to do all that stuff. I just want to have it, you know. And then you have cardinal air is Libra. And so air is associated, so Libra is relationships. And partnerships. And then fixed air is Aquarius.
Which is back to that culture, right? It's cultivating and they're part of it.
Well, it's the air is associative. Aries is, but then you got to deal with where they are in the scheme of things. See, because Aries is up in the universal. And so the cycle, so we're on astrology, the cycle is like,
It's built this way. You have the personal, the first 6 signs are personal. The second 6 signs are social. So then from Aries to Virgo is personal development. From Libra to Pisces is social development. So what the philosophy says, before you can have meaningful relationships, you got to know self. Because Aries is I am, Libra is I balance, or we are. So then to have a good we are is composed of 2 I ams. If those I ams don't understand who they are, you're going to have a real lousy we. That also is then true for the greater whole. If all us individuals is confused on identity, how are we going to be we? It's going to be out of balance. Because Aries is identity. The start of anything is identity. So if we're talking about creating anything, we got to have an identity. And that's the major problem with African Americans, is identity crisis. Our youth right now don't know what to identify with. So they want to get, that's why the gangs and all that kind of stuff. Because youth have to have something to identify with. Because they're trying to come to here. I will. But then I will is based upon Cancer, which is the home. So if the home is unstable, I will going to be unstable and destructive. So it actually tells you the format in terms of, like Capricorn represents society. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which represents the father. Cancer is ruled by the mother or the home. If you don't have fathers in the home, you don't have the necessary discipline to be able to operate a society effectively.
So you're saying for each one of these, the one is directly opposite
is its opposite.
And they work
together. That's the complement. Yeah, it's
But
a
they need a
complement.
foundation though. They need a foundation. Like home, like society needs a home for the home is the foundation.
Home is the foundation for society, but homes operate in the context of a society.
And I am is a foundation for relationship.
Right, because that's identity. But on the opposite side, though, the I am came out of a we. Because to get the I, you had to have a marriage or relationship. That's for the kid to come out. So then it also says then if the marriage or relationship that produced the kid is also then going to define the I am. Does the kid understand who he is? Well, if he comes out of a war, if you don't have a balanced relationship, then the I am is going to be all off key. So that's why marriages and relationships are so important if you're going to produce stable individuals. But then marriage is a function of the development of the individual. Because it's I am, then what you have, and so that's material things. Then you have your learning, your study, your knowledge. Then you have your home is where you consolidate yourself. You become consolidated in your home environment. Then out of that, you start expressing yourself creatively, but based upon whatever your home environment is. And then Virgo is analysis and adjustment and perfection.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's how, you scrutinize and analyze and you adjust to make it better. And so then once you perfect it or your personality, then relationships come out of that. Then Scorpio is really how you maintain relationships. And Scorpio is we have. Really the key word is I desire, but its opposite of I have is we have. But then because the individual is unstable, Scorpio usually is I desire. People want what they can get out of it. They're not into it in terms of what we have, is what I desire.
What element are they?
Or what? Scorpio is water. And see, Scorpio, the water is fixed water. That's fixed memories. And the major problem with Scorpio is they carry the past with them around all the time. That's like the poison in their tail. And so if they had a negative past, they have a negative present because they always relate to the memory of how it was in the past. So if I meet you and you say certain words, I'll flash back on how that hit me then, I'm going to relate to you like that. It's fixed water. So the emotions become fixed. Their greatest thing is releasing old baggage.
To balance that old baggage, what is the opposite, again, for the Scorpio?
The opposite of Scorpio is Taurus. I have.
Or they want it.
Well, is what do they have? What did they have? Was it productive? Was it positive? Or was it negative? Did they have lack? Or did they have satisfaction? You know, so were the experiences satisfying or were they lacking? You know, because anyway. So then out of see, it also Scorpio also relates to death, sex and death. You see, sex now is from a physical plane. Sex, life is sex because it's the interaction between the positive and the negative, male and female energy. But Scorpio also deals with death and regeneration. So what it's saying is, when you come into a relationship, you have to kill all the negative things and transform them into a bigger thing. So it's through death. You're only going to have regeneration. Something has to die to be regenerated. So usually what dies is the individual being born into the collective, or the unit, the group, or the relationship, you know. And the issue, I could, you know, the scenario is sex. The ultimate in sex is a simultaneous orgasm between both partners. That's the ultimate. Usually what happens is one just goes for what they can get, and then the other gets fair for themselves. That's I desire, as opposed to we have. But Scorpio also is the business sign because it deals with others' resources, be it physical, emotional, mental, or whatever. So Scorpio also likes to control others. We have, well, I desire what we have. And so, but they make a good business sign because they deal with bringing in others' resources to create something that couldn't be created by themselves. That's what happens in sex. You got to have a partner to be able to create something that you can't create by yourself. So it's an analogy. Life is just, you know, different levels. But then out of this, then comes Sagittarius in terms of I see. So then do you see what has to be transformed from the individual to the collective? And out of that, you gain philosophy or understanding of what life is really all about. So that's where the philosophy and the religion on how the bigger picture operates. So out of that, philosophy, religion, law, then you have Capricorn, which is I use. How do you then use this understanding of how relationships need to be maintained to maintain balance based upon the perfection of the individual and the expression of their creative individuality, out of consolidating themselves from out of their environment, from what they have, from who they are. And then that society is an outcome of all that. So then if all this stuff is all crazy, then this is going to be crazy. And then out of society, that society formalizes and creates standards and structures and institutions to institutionalize the philosophy. But then Aquarius comes in, and Aquarius is how do you sustain social relationships? And Aquarius is I know, but also Aquarius relates to peers and people of like mind. Because society is really sustained by groups of like-minded people working together. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, you know, mothers, mechanics, whatever. Those are clusters of people that work in their area with other like-minded people to create a network that sustains the whole.
Do you think we're at that point in time where we're like-minded, the age of Aquarius? Are we at the doorway?
We're at the doorway to see the age of Aquarius is like-minded people. See, age of Aquarius is also the planet or the sign of the revolutionary because it represents individual freedom. It represents one fulfilling their own unique individual creativity. So again, it goes back, if I'm a doctor, then I try to get involved with other doctors because that helps me elevate my understanding because I work, you know, if I'm a drummer, I'm going to be around other drummers because that's going to elevate my drumming because I learn and I exchange. So Aquarius deals with networks. It also deals with science and technology, and innovation and creativity. And so then it deals with the fulfillment of the individual's creativity, because it's opposite of Leo. Leo is I will, Aquarius is we will. And then from that we will, that means the individual can express his creativity in the context of the collective. The ultimate is that you can be all you can be, but you do it in the context of the greater whole. That's ultimate liberation. What happens now is I want all you to be what I want you to be, as opposed that you can be as unique as you can be and as different as you from her, but we still operate in a collective, unity and diversity. So that's what Age of Aquarius is about. That each culture can be who it is, but in the context of the relationship to the whole. That's why Europeans can be who you want to be, but you got to be who over there. You can't be trying to make us be who you want to be. You know, Asians, you can be who you want to be. Just don't come over here trying to make us be who you want to be. Hispanics, you can be who you want to be, but don't come over here trying to make us be who you want us to be. And so that's really the globe is trying to work that out.
But they won't leave us alone.
That's because they won't. See, it goes back to this. Identity, I am. See, their I am was separated from we are. And I could get into the planetary thing, because see, we are is Venus, which is love. I am is Mars, war. And the final is Pisces. So Pisces is actually deals with I believe. But see, Pisces is the bridge between the visible and the invisible. See, the one thing about that Christianity does, see, Christianity is based upon spiritual truths. And because people can get into this spiritual ecstasy and feel the spirit and, you know, a lot of those things are true, it traps them. Because, you know, yeah, I did feel the spirit, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But in the context of what, though? So then, because see, Pisces deals with the universality. Pisces is the culmination of all the life. So it's like all life merging together into one. And what happened during the Piscean age? The planet was merged together. Although from a negative, it still was merged together.
Pisces is the Virgo, is that house.
That's right. Pisces deals with, see, Virgo deals with personal metamorphosis.
Order.
Virgo deals with personal metamorphosis. Pisces deals with collective metamorphosis, or transformation or change. But then they deal with health and all that kind of stuff too. But you can see that during the Piscean age, the whole planet was reseeded and mixed all up. But see, the universe is operating in a higher plane. It's the whole thing we talk about the blood and the role the blood plays in terms of the genetics and the germ and the spirit. So then for all these bloods to be mixed up, then has opened up the ancestral bloodlines to all the races. While the bloodline was just in one race, then reincarnation and all the spirit just came through that lineage. By mixing all the bloods together, you now have linked the spiritual connections back to all the continents. And African American people are the unity of the globe. We're the only ones where all the bloodlines have been remixed together. Which means it's like an alpha and omega. Because all of them came out of the one. And now they're all met back together again in the one, which is us. But see, we don't really understand our global responsibility in this new age. Because we don't even understand half of this stuff. But again, energy follows thought. Once we understand really what our real role is, then we will start. What actually is, once you understand or identify it, the identification of it literally starts to pull the material to you to make the idea become a reality. That's true in your personal life. If you're confused about what you're supposed to do, you're not going to be able to pull the resources to yourself to do it. But once you identify what you're supposed to do, then life starts to respond to you in that way. You got a question, now take me right into the handout I gave you. Exactly.
How does these 12 divisions relate to 12 initiations that you passed out?
They're related. With anything that has the same symbolism, the same number, are related. No, exactly. I haven't did an exact study of comparison. With like the 12 signs, the signs of initiation, because it's also an evolutionary journey. Because it also follows the seasons. Aries is spring, Cancer is summer, Libra is fall, and Capricorn is winter. So you have a daily, that's like Aries is 6 a.m. Capricorn is 12 noon. Libra is 6 p.m. and Cancer is 12 midnight. So it's following the same energy pattern that life operates on. And then if you get to the ages, then each age is about 2100 years, which then is a season within the bigger 26,000 year cycle. And then within the 26,000 year cycle, each one of those also can be equated to an Aryan 26,000 year cycle, a Taurian 26, you can just keep wheels within wheels to infinity. With the handout I just gave you, if you go to the first page, almost ready. It says, vocation is the process of making one's way towards something. It is a direction more than a goal. This is key. It is a direction more than a goal. Following a peak experience, one of the conspirators, a housewife who later became a filmmaker, said, I felt as if I'd been called to serve on somebody's plan for mankind. The conspirators typically say they feel as if they are cooperating with events rather than controlling them or suffering them, much as an Aikido master augments his strength by aligning himself with existing forces, even those in opposition. That's just what I'm saying. If you understand what time it is and the direction that time and energy is moving in, then you align yourself with those energies and you flow with it. Otherwise, you're going to be working at cross purpose. It's like you're trying to swim when the tide is coming in. If you're a powerful swimmer, you might make it out there, but you're going to work like hell. As opposed to when the tide starts flowing out, you can just ride with it and you go with it. So the same thing is inside of you, your soul or your spirit knows what time it is. Because it knows why it's here. It's just your conscious mind doesn't know because you haven't been educated, even recognize or relate to that. So that's why meditation and just quieting yourself and doing these different exercises helps you tune in to what your call is. That's what the next handout is. So you got a whole other time. Redo it next week. This deals with different technologies or different techniques that helps you tune in to your inner self. Basically, this comes out of this book called The Aquarian Conspiracy, Personal and Social Transformation, and this was in the 1980s. This is a powerful book. And basically, I talked about this book. What she basically did is she may still have a newsletter called the Mind Body Mind newsletter, where she was doing research. It's called the Brain Mind Bulletin, and it was a newsletter where she was chronicling all these changes that were going on all over the globe, and basically what she was seeing as these patterns were coming out. And people were just talking about how, again, like she talked about this housewife that became a filmmaker, how she had a realization about what she really wanted to do, and by starting to follow it, then she started following her unction. She started to obey the call. So basically, this handout is talking about the crossover, how people are crossing over from the old way of being to the new way of being. And a lot of it is happening just by them following their inner voice. They don't know where it's going to take them. They have this strong urge that they need to do it. And although they don't know where the next thing is going to lead them, they're confident that it's going to lead them where they need to go, and they follow it. Like at the bottom of the page, it says, former astronaut Edgar Mitchell became deeply interested in promoting the study of these states of consciousness after his moon flight, and he launched an organization to raise funds for this purpose. At one point, he remarked to a friend, "I feel almost as if I'm operating under orders. Just when I think all is lost, I put my foot down over an abyss, and something comes up to hit it just in time." It says, for some there is a conscious moment of choice. For others, the commitment is recognized only in retrospect. I mean, you just start following it, you don't know where it's leading, and when you look back, you say, oh wow, I'm way over into this thing now. I didn't see myself happen, I just was doing it. So it says, Dag Hammarskjöld described the shift of his own life from the ordinary to the meaningful. I don't know who or what put the question. I don't know when it was put. I don't even remember answering. But at some moment I did answer to someone or something. And from that hour I was certain that existence is meaningful, and that therefore my life is self-surrender. In self-surrender, have a goal. That goes back to the obedience. I talked about submission. We talked about resignation, courage. Talked about courage. All of that, conformity, compliance, and then it gives you more and more examples of it. So read this, and it tells you. And what I'm trying, there's my thing. And because what it's saying, and I started off saying this. It's number one, your soul knows. And your soul is always trying to communicate with you. Always. You just don't tune into it. You ignore it. You don't pay attention to it. You don't follow it. You're disobedient. You're the prodigal child or the prodigal son. It ain't talking about the thing outside. It's you not listening to your own father or teacher or leader or master within your own self. So you become prodigal, you become disobedient, delinquent.
So how are you learning this about meditation?
That's one way. Pick this piece up here. I just hand out what it says. It says sensory isolation and sensory overload, biofeedback, autogenic training, music, sometimes in combination with imagery and meditation, improvisational theater. It means being able to act. See, when you do things spontaneously, then you're operating from the inside because it ain't conditioned. That's why I try to say, just write what comes to your mind. But see what happens sometimes with stuff, your mind be like, oh, this might seem stupid, or this might seem crazy, or this might seem, you already put a limitation on yourself. Piscean age is subjective limitation. We limitate the limitations that we find ourselves confronting are subjective. You know what that means?
Do it yourself.
You do it yourself. It ain't real. It's subjective. We limit our own self subjectively. Like right now, I would work with a lot of youth, like I said before, the project. They won't come out the project. Is that an objective limitation or a subjective limitation? It's subjective. They have confined themselves. And of course, we can talk about why and all this, but it still comes down to is self-imprisonment. We got so now that we want to you know, our culture has become ghettoized to where now it's like we identify with the whole ghetto culture where we now, that's who we are. That ain't who we are. That's the product of the slave experience. And now we're identifying with it. Now it becomes our own limitation. So anyway, it gives you all kind of techniques, different techniques. You know, meditation, self-hypnosis, conscious raising, self-help, mutual help networks, seminars, dream journals, different theosophical Gurdjian systems, psychopathologies, science of mind, A Course in Miracles, Hatha Yoga, Tai Chi, Aikido, Karate, running, dancing, kinesiology. You can go through intense experiences of personal and collective change, sensitivity groups, encounter groups, informal support groups, sports, mountain climbing, river running, physical exhilarating exercises. All these things can create qualitative shifts in your awareness that can open you up.
Explain to me what this,
Kitty, you got a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's raging here.
Also, we must note that many of these on this list are also used by the intelligence community to exert mind control. And some of these very groups have had connections with mind control.
Yeah. Well, that's like a gun.
Just like the main thing is the footnote that's down at the bottom, the psychotechnologies. Right. Of course, we know that the intelligence community is just the extension of that pathological, technological addiction.
Well, see, technology is, we look at technology as being techniques. It's when you take scientific information and you apply it. Again, what we're trying to do is go back. I'm trying to go back to the generic terminology as opposed to us still reacting to Eurocentric. Operating in awareness that they do these things, they do, all that is true. And you have to be conscious of it. But you can't let the way they work something then turn us off to dealing with something. So a lot of us people, because Europeans are in it, then we don't want to get in it. Where if you go back to the origin of it, we created it. But now because they're in it, we now give them the credibility to it. Like you're talking about business or being organized or being, disciplined. Oh, that's a white thing. Excuse me? How did they build a pyramid? It was highly disciplined. Oh, you just go to traditional culture, they are highly disciplined. But within the discipline, there's freedom and stuff too. It ain't the same kind, but anyway, that's the point I'm making. Anyway.
So to break down that word, psychotechnology.
It's technologies of the psyche.
So it's mind technique.
Yeah, for the mind. And see, basically what she's done though is we're in winter. So in the winter, there's all kind of death going on. But also within the middle of all that death, there are the seeds for the new future. And so the thing is, if you're aware of this, you have to focus in on the seeds for the future and understand that all around you, all this death becomes the fertilizer for the seeds of the future. The question I always raise with people, what are you going to be? Are you going to be a leaf or are you going to be a seed? Both of them got a role to play. And some people going to be leaves. And then there's got to be those that's going to be seeds. But at the same time, you're a seed, you're not going to see the immediate harvest. Because it's going to be later. And a lot of people get frustrated because they want it now. But it's winter. You ain't going to get it now. And just like if we was in the snow, physically, culturally, and psychologically, we are in the snow. And so all you can do is conserve your energy and start sprouting your roots so you can break through in the spring. And so a lot of us are still living on the surface. We need to develop those roots. And the deeper your roots go, the higher the plant will be able to grow. And so in a sense, our roots would be our internal infrastructures. You know, how deep and how heavy are our internal infrastructure, both your personal and the collective. Most of our infrastructures are very shallow. They can't withstand too big of a storm without falling over or breaking down. Most of our stuff can't withstand a lot of pressure before all kind of crazy stuff starts happening. People start quitting, arguing, or leaving, or doing whatever. And so I'm just taking an analogy to say this is a time for us to develop very deep roots. And roots is a network coming out of the seed. And the seed is the idea of what we're trying to do. And the roots is the infrastructure. What is our infrastructure? You know, they talk about in our community. What is our infrastructure? We don't control the infrastructure. So that's why we are always subject to disruption and disorder. Because we don't control the infrastructure. And we're not moving to control the infrastructure. We're still commissioning those who control the infrastructure. Please do it the way we would like to do it. No, you got to move to go on and control it yourself. That goes back to Taurus, the means of production. But you can't do Taurus without Aries in terms of identity. That goes back to the original thing. And so it's true for you, and it's also true for us as a collective. Now, all that to bring it back to the Long Beach Study Group, since we're here, in terms of the degree. You define that, but also will help individuals to be able to define what part they need to play in. But then to the degree that individuals understand who they are, they will understand what part they need to play. Anyway, that's how all that stuff goes. So it goes back to individuals, it goes back to relationships, which then goes to families, which then goes to community, which then goes to society. So I had another hand that I could give. Well, I made them up, and next week I'm going to move forward, so I'll give you this stuff, since I've got it.
You familiar with silver architecture?
Yeah.
What?
It's a technique for developing thinking. So he has various techniques that helps you break out of your limited thinking.
Is that like cybernetics?
To a certain degree, it's the same line with some of that.
Maxwell Mall.
I don't know about that one, but I know he has a lot of people in the business use that for creative thinking techniques. Yeah. But of course, you know, you can use these, just like they use religion, they can use these same things for positive or negative.
Right.
But see, the only way they can use them for negative if the people are ignorant. If you understand the game, then they can't run the game on you. So like if I'm a martial artist, another martial will come up on me, I'm gonna know counters to him. But if I'm ignorant of martial art, it just wear me out.
Yeah.
I won't know what's going on.
Sucker punch you every time.
Right. So, well, I guess I will do it. Y'all pass this stuff out. Y'all might not know.
Silver nose sounds.
Okay. So, obedience. Being obedient to the call. You hear me calling? Okay. You want keywords for planets?
Yeah.
Okay, planets, okay. The sun is power. Power. Planets represent psychological functions and urges. Moon, domestic. Mercury, intellectual. We got Venus, social. got Mars, desire. We got Jupiter, which is religious. We got Saturn, safety. You have Uranus, is individualistic. You have Neptune, is idealism, is utopian. Utopian. And then Pluto is universal. This is just, man, you can get into a lot of other adjectives and stuff related to that.
What'd you call them?
What? These are each of the planet it represents urges or functions, signs or attitudes and needs. Urges or functions. The planets are the energies. Signs qualify the energy. So if my sun is my power urge, and I'm a Sagittarian, which is IC, deals with philosophy, then my power comes through philosophy, religion, law, higher mind studies on one level. Sag also relates to advertisement and promotions and speaking, things of that nature, travel, athletics. So then see, that's just general, because you got to look at the whole mix. We all have all of this in us. So it's how they all mix together, it creates a unique you. Yeah.
Question. Now, being that you have 2 different Mercuries and 2 Venuses in the zodiac, so
you don't have 2 different ones, they're just placed in 2 different signs.
Okay.
And so then, well, what's the sign? See, Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Gemini is air, Virgo is earth.
Yeah.
Gemini, they're both mutable, so then air is going to be more associated and more scattered.
Mm-hmm.
Earth is going to be a little bit more concrete. So Virgos, you're still intellectual, but they're more practical intellectual.
Yeah.
How can I apply it? Where Gemini is more scattered. They like to talk and communicate, but they make good salespeople or good communicators or radio and television, because they can just talk all this stuff, But Virgos is more methodical and more practical. They want to get to the essence of things. So then the other one is like...
got 2 Venuses, Libra.
Venus rules Taurus and also Libra. When Taurus is earth. Libra is air. So in Taurus, because Venus is a planet of love, which you value and appreciate, And so then in earth, it values and appreciates material. In the air, it appreciates relationships. So that Libra is going to be more into partnerships and relationships, social things. Libra like nice social environments. They deal with interior design, music and culture, and refined type things, like to bring people together in pleasant environments. Taurus is money, material things, building stuff, or, they're more like, hey, I want some concrete, I want to make a table real strong so I can stand on it. Because it's like solid, like the earth. It's fixed,
You parents have been hand out before.
Probably have, Probably have. How everybody don't come to every class, so they have. Right, but yeah. Okay, so, again, we could be here for 20 years, so. So what you do is you mix, so, planets are like lights. Signs are like colored gels. So then the different signs color the energy of the planets based upon their particular vibe.
I follow you.
And then the houses are areas of life experience. So that's the area that this energy is expressing itself as it's modified by that sign. So, then we get into the different houses, works different areas of life. So when you look at the mix, you can start then saying, oh, well, okay. That's the flavor that comes out of that. Okay. It's like about 2 hours, so you're going to talk longer.
Okay. And these little exercises what we do, you might take it lightly, but it's very significant. I bet you if you keep these things, in 2 or 3 years from now, you look back at it, it's gonna be like, wow, that was a trip.
You may be already doing it.
Yeah.